So different types of psychology and how Shilajit would be used. That's going back to my point of neurotypical being most people's brain set versus neurodivergent, and people having disorders like, I suppose, bipolar disorder, histrionic disorder, psychopathy. Did I say bipolar? Bipolar, borderline, and just there's a whole load of different psychologies now. Psychology is something I never really believed in much until recently. I thought it was all a bunch of just rubbish until I sort of looked into my own psychology, and I'm like, damn, psychology is actually quite great, except, personally speaking, that they need to implement that element of God and spiritual intervention, whether that spiritual intervention is positive or negative. If they could do, psychology would be a perfect science. But without that, it's not a perfect science. But nevertheless, the descriptives of people's characters or their psychology is very interesting. So again, neurodivergent, neurotypical, having a disorder, not having a disorder, and the different traits. Some of them are just traits, and some of them are basic traits that are so strong in people's lives, it becomes a disorder. You understand me? It creates disorder in their lives. So yeah, just touching on that. Obviously, there's different types of psychology. That means that Shilajit, for example, doesn't mean it will be great for every single person the same way it is for each individual. Some people might want to stay away from full stop, though I don't think that's the general trend. But I'm being honest because we haven't done research left, right, and center. But from the research we have done, Shilajit is really good overall for psychology, but there could be certain mindsets that, as a disclaimer, we may say, talk to your psychologist first, though the psychologist probably wouldn't know much about Shilajit anyway. But the point is, I believe Shilajit is fantastic for disorders, but it doesn't mean it's good for every disorder. For example, a psychopathy, okay? Now, you can get good psychopaths.
No, I'm not sure. I've never not aware of that.
Never heard of that? Okay, so a good psychopath is the inner meaning of psychopathy is someone who has no emotion. So unfortunately, most people with no emotion use that in a negative way, and they get angry, or they have intention in their life. They might marry somebody. A man might marry a woman. He might be psychopathy. He says all the right things to get her, woo her, and then the first few months it's all good. Then suddenly he shows his psychopathy. He shows his real intention, his way. But that's quite a hidden. It's quite very hidden, until it's come up. So what? Basically, I'm trying to say, actually, I think psychopathy and Shilajit might not go together too well. Okay. I mean, pure psychopathy, not like borderline psychopathy or other types of psychopathy. I'm talking about pure psychopathy where you have no emotion. So the good psychopath with no emotion, who it could be, for example, a boss who works for some company or does some charity work, and then all these kids come up to him and say, "Thank you for feeding me, my family. We love you." And he's seen all the positive effects he's done to that family and group or society, and they're crying with happiness, and he has no emotion. He's just like, okay, leave me alone. Okay, I'm not feeling it, but I'm glad you're happy. You might not even be glad happy. That's kind of an example of a good psychopath, if that makes sense. He has no emotion. So psychopath doesn't mean you have to be bad all the time. You know what I mean? It's about not having emotions.
I've seen people who are autistic or are in the spectrum as well. I've worked with people who are autistic who have no emotion. They're still in the spectrum of autism. So I didn't call them a psychopath. I didn't thought until you mentioned it to me now. But it is a spectrum. It is a neurodivergent thing, actually. It's not a normal thing not to have emotions. So yeah, you're right. It is more of a neurodivergent.
Because many bosses have even been known to be narcissists as well. So every psychopath is a narcissistic, but not every narcissistic person is a psychopath. Because they're very similar, but a narcissistic person still has some emotion.
They have emotions.
Yeah. They love themselves. It's all about them, which is psychopath is about. But the main difference of psychopathy and narcissism is that it's the emotional side. I think narcissists have less emotions too. They have less emotion, but the psychopath literally has no emotion. He literally doesn't see no emotion. But this narcissistic person can have he has some level of emotion. You can be described as narcissistic if you have some level of emotion, but it's still all about you. So that's the main difference. So a lot of bosses, again, there's an example of good narcissistic people. Well, maybe, a lot of bosses have been described as narcissistic around the world, leaders, CEOs, etc., etc. So, yeah, would these people benefit with Shilajit? Let's try.